There's an old country song where the guy talks about being out, being drunk, and coming home late at night and getting himself in a whole lot of trouble. And his wife finds him sleeping in the attic, I think, or something like that at some point. And his whole defense of his ridiculous behavior to his wife is to make up this line of reasoning, and it doesn't really add up, but he always ends it with the same thing. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Do you do the same thing? I'm J Loren Norris with the Leading Leaders Podcast, and I've noticed over the last few years that I'm not the only one talking about story. I'm not the only one who tells people that if you have a platform, if you have the opportunity to tell your story, that you should tell your story because it's impactful. It changes lives. It can save lives. I know that your story is important. And by story, I don't just mean your lifelong soliloquy that starts with birth and ends with death. And I don't mean the soap opera that is the drama that you've lived through. What I mean is that allowing people to see what's going on in your life, in your real world, in your personal journey. Those things are teachable moments. And your story isn't just your quick journey to success. It isn't the one moment that changed everything. While that may be important and that may be beneficial to one person who's looking for that little tip, trick, or secret to change where they're at. Maybe the combination lock for them has been 5 to the right and 23 to the left and 13 to the right to open it. But they keep stopping on 10 instead of 13. And if they just knew that they stop on 13 instead of 10, the lock would open and life would change. In that moment, your story of how just that one little tweak from 10 to 13 changed everything, that could change their life. But see, sometimes there are those moments where what they need to hear is that argument that you had with your 5-year-old and how you were actually wrong and how the right thing for you to do was to apologize, to say, I messed up. And how that humility changed your relationship with your 5-year-old. And when they were 15 and thinking about suicide, and you said, I think this is the wrong idea. And they went, coming from someone who knows what it means to be wrong and to say, I was wrong, that means a lot to me. But if I heard that from someone who's never admitted they were wrong, it'd be really hard for me to hear them say, that's wrong, because that's just judgment. See, sometimes people need to know that you've made mistakes. You learn as much from your failure as your successes, right? From your mistakes as your wins, right? Of course, you have to celebrate the wins. But see, here's one other thing that I've heard in the last few years as we talk about story and the impact of story and the placement of story, and that is that so many people believe that just because they've lived a life worth talking about, that everywhere they go, they should tell the story of the life they've lived worth talking about. That every stage, every platform, every open opportunity to communicate is about their story. Regardless who's in the audience, regardless whose platform it is, regardless the need of the people in the room at the moment, they're going to hear your life story because you really don't have anything else to say. That, my friends, is wrong. That's not true. It's not true that just because you have a story, you should share it everywhere you go. It's not true that just because you have a story and you share it everywhere that you go, that anyone who has a stage and anyone who has a platform should invite you to use their platform to tell your story, because your story may have no influence or impact on their platform and their stage with their audience. I will tell you, though, that as you begin to master the understanding of your story and whose life it impacts and what kind of change it makes, then you can begin to see consistent results from your story and know which platforms, which stages to engage it from, and which audiences are going to be most impacted by it. I also want you to know that if you have your own platform, If you lead a company, if you lead an organization, if you lead a community that's united by something else, but they look to you for influence, for impact, for leadership, then you have a platform, you have a stage that you're responsible for. Not just what you say from it, but who you allow on it to say something from it, because the impact they have from that platform will be profound. So yes, you have a story. Yes, it can impact, influence, and maybe even save a life. Yes, your story matters to you and to others. But not always the soap opera, the soliloquy, and not on every stage, and not on every platform, and not at every time. And when you can discern when to use it, when to hold it back, when to share a little bit, and when to share nothing, you will deepen the power of your story and expose the power of your platform. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.